So everything seems to be working. Brilliant.
Kasia, dońce.
Możesz tutaj postawić?
Dońce będzie.
Na razie i tak nie będę pił. Na razie. Postaw to jakoś normalnie, bo...
Wstawię tak.
Ty wejdziesz, to kopniesz później. Nie, już nie wchodź. Okej. Mama.
Mama.
Hey, Pavel.
Hamid. Hello, Hamid.
I'm trying to, we don't have video, or is this audio only? Is that what it is? Or am I having a problem? I'm not really sure.
Whichever way you prefer. We can leave as audio, so we won't be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I think I have video. If you want, I turned it on, so
You
it's
have
fine.
video.
I didn't know what was going on. Hello, my
Over.
friend. It's been a while since we talked. So
It's been a couple of
can you hear me?
weeks, months. Yes. Do you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Super.
Yeah.
How you've been doing? Because you are in Mexico right now. Is that correct?
Yes. I've been living in Mexico since October. We've been living here. I really like it. You know, I lived in Thailand for 2 years and Philippines for 6 months. But I really like where we live here. I call it California light because, you know, California is awesome, but you can't live there because it's so expensive. But, you know, we live in Baja California, and it's cheap and it's nice and it's really awesome. I really like it.
So right now, Mexico. How would you describe that country, that place?
It's
right now?
interesting, you know. I could just give you a tiny sort of a thumbnail snapshot thing. We traveled to the U.S. yesterday, and we traveled to the U.S. and we had to wait to cross the U.S. border. It took us an hour and like 20 minutes, almost 80 minutes, waiting to cross the border, right? And we were in a line with thousands of people to cross, and there are all these super efficient Americans, you know, and they're processing, but America is America with all its stuff. And then when we were coming back to Mexico, there was zero wait line, right? Like we just came back, it's like the door is open, and you know, and there was like one guy processing people. In America, when we were going through the border, there were like 30 people processing, and it took us an hour and 20 minutes.
With a huge queue, right? With a huge queue on the way.
Huge queue, but when we were coming to Mexico, it took us zero time, and there was just one guy, because that's how relaxed Mexican people are, how nice they are. I really like the Latin culture. I really find.
What do you think? Why is that? Why is that many people are crossing to US? Apart of, well, what's the reason?
Well, no, I mean they. But what I'm trying to tell you, Pavel, is that I don't think there were fewer Mexicans coming back to Mexico or Americans or whatever. I'm just saying that Mexicans were not making it hard to go to Mexico. From America, it's super easy to go to Mexico. From Mexico, it's super hard to go to America, right? It's not just because there were so many Mexicans going to America. I think there were a lot of Mexicans coming back to Mexico, or Americans going to Mexico. But Mexico doesn't have the regulations and doesn't have the laws and doesn't stop people. And and American people like to think that it's because, you know, America is so much superior to Mexico. And I really don't feel that. Living here, I really, you know, I really don't feel much difference in terms of anything with America.
So
Not
it
for
feels
me, really.
so it feels like it's just based on the security, right? They very Americans are very sensitive who they are letting in, and the process is much more that's much longer.
It's like a consciousness thing. It's like, you know, people in the West, and especially in America, North America, and maybe parts of Europe, have a sense of somewhat superiority or somewhat importance, or I don't really know what it is. But when you deal with, you know, Filipinos, or when you deal with Mexicans, there is this beautiful humility. There is this humility. There is not so much arrogance. It's almost like from a spiritual consciousness point of view, you feel that American people think that every American person needs to have, I don't know, an acre of land around themselves to feel whatever important. Whereas when you feel that a Mexican person would be okay with 10 inches, you know, there isn't that much energy wasted on making yourself something. It's very interesting. I don't really know. I don't get it.
Ego plays a big part here. What do you think? Like they need to have a lot of stuff going on around them in America and in Mexico less?
It's ego. I mean, somebody was saying one time that for the whole world to live like America, we would need 23 Earths. You know, that's the kind of insane kind of thing it is. And, you know, it's because of the ego, because of the greed. Jeff Bezos and Amazon, you know, the guy with Amazon guy, they hardly paid any taxes. I mean, they paid nothing. I think he made, I don't know, billions upon billions of dollars, and they paid no taxes. And at the same time, they cut down, and they're trying to replace their workers to get even cheaper workers. And at the same time, Jeff Bezos bought a mansion in Los Angeles for $165 million, right? So it's like that. That kind of a greed is everywhere, right? And that kind of
it's interesting to observe, because you have that Jeff Bezos, Amazon, it's a business, and the business is always aiming to cut costs, but as well, where is the balance? I'm just wondering, where is the balance? Where is the balance of that? Where's the end of that?
Like I don't know if you ever read. I don't know if you ever read my piece, or I sent it to you or something. But I investigated this. I mean, Dr. Bruce Lipton investigated this. He wrote about this. You know, there is this thing about economy, right? That economy, people think that economy should be one or the other. Some people say, okay, it should be like communism, that, you know, that everybody gets the same amount. And some people say, no, it should be capitalism, that whatever, you know, the smart people get everything and the others get nothing. And so because I am such a huge believer of human body, and, you know, Dr. Lipton talks about this, like, okay, let's look at human body. Let's look at how does the human body operate in terms of, you know, working with the economy. And it happens to be that we have this thing called ATP cells, ATP energy units, which are actually in biology, they're called like energy coin, literally. That's how your body basically it distributes energy, it distributes wealth and resources. So let's look at the way this ATP is distributed in your body. Let's look at it. Okay, first let's see if there are some cells in the body that don't get any ATP. That's absolutely not true. Every cell in your body gets ATP. Okay. So we know that it's not capitalism, right? We know that not every cell in your body gets something. Okay. Well, let's look at it and see, okay, are these cells all getting the same amount? Like, you know, like, you know, this, I don't know, your cell in your eye and the cell in your hand and the cell in your skin, do they all get the same amount of ATP? No, they don't. Cells get amount of ATP depending on how critical a role they play in your body. So a nerve cell in your body gets something about 250 times more ATP than your skin cells. Because your skin cells die, you lose millions of cells a day and you hardly know it. And your nerve cells, if you lose 10 nerve cells in a finger, you can't move that finger, right? So a nerve cell is so much more important for the body than the skin cells. That therefore, because the body is meritocracy, that cells get so much more. Okay, so we know that it's not capitalism, it's not communism, it's a meritocracy, which is based on the importance. Then let's look at it and say, okay, then how much energy do your cells get? How much money, how much resources? Well, the answer is they get as much as they need to thrive and do well and enjoy themselves, right? So your nerve cell gets whatever, this amount, and anything outside what it needs to do well and enjoy itself, anything gets stored outside of the cell. So there is not one cell in your body that keeps hoarding these amounts when it doesn't need it anymore, right? It stops and it gives it to the rest of your body. And then guess what? That becomes your fat cells. That's what fat cells are. Fat cells are these things that you are storing the energy that you no longer need. And then look at it this way. That's one thing, right? That's how the cells are, that they no longer keep the thing they don't need, and they give it free. And then two things. One, according to Dr. Lipton, you are and I am the collective consciousness of our cells. And in so doing, our energy, the energy that I'm using to move my hands or talk to you, all of this energy is actually the surplus energy of your cells. None of your cells are done for me to move my hand, right? My hand, not because I stole energy from my parts, from my cells. I am moving my body with the surplus energy that all of my body is completely happy. The rest existence is actually the surplus energy of all your cells. And then one last thing is that every cell in your body has triple bottom lines. It thinks of itself, it enjoys itself, it has an amazing sense of self. Number two, it does well in community and connection with other cells. And number three, it's always at the same time thinking about the impact it has on its greater good and the body. It's always having that. So triple bottom lines at the same time, thinking of itself, doing well in connection, and as impact to other cells, to the body. What do you think happens when a cell only thinks of itself?
Well,
What happens with that kind
the
of
cell
sufficient
dies.
consciousness?
But the cell that looks only after will die.
That is the definition of cancer. Cancers cells are cells that have separation consciousness, that they no longer think and care about the rest of the body. And Dr. Elizabeth Sahtouris is one of these scientists who she's an evolution biologist. And she goes around the planet and she tells people like Jeff Bezos, super rich people, or people who own governments or are in the government, she says, you're the cancer of this planet. Not only are you killing yourself, you're killing the planet, right? And so when you have somebody like Jeff Bezos spend $165 million on a house, you have the definition of cancer and then some, right? And so you have this planet, it's all about separation consciousness. There is so many people here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Looking at an individual. So we got that cell, Jeff Bezos, but he have his business and get so the business is an organism, we can call it, right, in this case. So Jeff Bezos is like the cell which thinks that is the most important. Well, gets a lot of energy out of the body, but then it's still, the business still gives hundreds of thousands of jobs all over the world to people.
Mm-hmm. Sure. The thing is that, Pavel, the thing is that, let's say Jeff Bezos is a nerve cell, right? Mm-hmm. He's a nerve cell, and because of the very important he needs to be compensated quite handsomely, right? Like a nerve cell. And a nerve cell is getting compensated like 230 times more than your average cell, or more than cell. And so that should be our reality, that people who are extremely useful for the planet, mm-hmm. like creating jobs, they get paid handsomely. But that handsomely is 230 times more than other people, not 2.3 million times other people, right? That's the problem. The problem is not people getting paid well, and the people who control this planet are not the 1%, right? The 1% is really not that big of a deal. The big deal is the 0.1%, right? Is the 1% of the 1% that are the issue. Those are the ones who own everything, right? So it's like we have cancer cells, or we have cells. And so if Jeff Bezos, I mean, there's a guy I think his name is Price.
You're referring to?
He's a millionaire. I think mm-hmm. he could be a millionaire. He's a millionaire, or he could be a millionaire. But he gave away so much of his money so that his other people in his company would make everybody in his company make at least $70,000. And he made his own salary $70,000 or a year, right? Because guess what? $70,000, we can have a nice life with it. So the rest is just the more you put on, and the thing about this is, Pavel, is that when you look at a lot of these people, a lot of these super rich people, they're not happy people. They're absolutely miserable. Have you heard of this thing called economics of happiness?
I'm familiarized a little bit about, well, with the concept of the money, that it won't bring you happiness, because the happiness, it doesn't come from owning more. This is actually,
they did research on it, right? And there is a magazine called Fast Company did research on this many years ago. This economics of happiness, apparently there is a limit, there's an amount that if you suddenly get this amount, and that amount is about like $2-3 million, right? Let's say tomorrow, Pavel, you got $3 million like given to you. That would make you very happy, right? But then after that, what happens is not happy making all the time. The reason for that is simple. The reason for that is that people who get paid, let's say, somebody gets paid $2 million or $3 million.
Okay, we are talking about one time income.
Yeah, let's say you just got 3-6. I don't really have a number, but It's a few million. So you got that, and that made you really happy. Now that somebody else has a chance to keep making money, okay? So this person who is, this person just got $2-3 million, and they're living like, you know, they're living an average life. They have an average everything. But now that they got the $2-3 million, they suddenly decide that, okay, I don't want to be with these average people anymore. I want to go live in a place where they're rich people, okay? So they go to this neighborhood where they're rich people, and, you know, they have $2-3 million, and everybody has expensive houses around them. And, you know, they're driving their, you know, their okay average car, or maybe expensive car. And then their neighbor comes, and their neighbor is driving a Rolls Royce. And this person who just, you know, got this expensive car and, you know, expensive house, they're like, oh, well, this guy's doing better than me. I have to do better than him. And they go do that. They go get money so that they are at the level of this other guy. And so now suddenly they are in a richer neighborhood with rich cars, but then their neighbor is coming with a helicopter. And I'm like, oh, that's guy got a helicopter. I got to get myself a helicopter. And then it never ends, Pavel. It never ends.
But that's kind of a false sense of happiness, isn't it? Because it comes
That's
from
what
comparing.
I'm trying to tell you. But no, but I'm saying it's not even happiness. It's like it doesn't matter. It keeps going up because there is always somebody who's richer than you. And, you know, and then there we have capitals of industry, captains of industry. Like this guy, Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, who is the most famous saying he has is, for me to win is not enough. When I win, everybody else has to lose. This is actually what one of the richest people in the world says, Pavel, right?
For me to win, everyone has to lose.
Everyone else has to lose, which is the opposite definition of open source and your body works. Your body makes sure that everybody wins. Because everybody doesn't win, you don't have a sustainable reality. But the captains of industry and Larry Ellison, who's a very, you know, disturbed individual, but he puts it out when what other people think, right? So you have a bunch of cancer cells on this planet fighting over with the rest of us getting destroyed, right?
But
so it's not that, yeah, go on.
One thing I wanted to add here, because yes, there are some people are rich and they are just, I'm not talking about the numbers, but there are people who are rich and they as well giving a lot to charity, like Bill Gates or Charlie Munger. They are,
well, Bill Gates, I don't want to talk about Bill Gates because Bill Gates is a very complicated situation.
But one thing I wanted to add, because I'm curious about your opinion on that, because yesterday I've been watching the Richard Branson guy.
Yes.
One of the quite rich guy behind Virgin Media, Imaging Group.
Yes.
And
yes.
When you were talking about that Oracle CEO, it reminds me Richard never says I. He's going we do that. We work on that.
Yeah.
But apart of that, what do you think about him as a CEO, as a guy who, because he has
I don't really know Richard Branson, and there's so many different people saying so many different things about him. But I want to say one thing to you, Pavel, which is really important for me, and that has to do with philanthropy, right? This idea of giving to charities. A lot of times philanthropy or giving to charities is a way for these people to get recognition, to get prestige, to get tax breaks. Because guess what? If actually wanted to help, right? If you wanted to create reality and change in the world and make the world a better place, and this actually happens quite often, you would not want your name to be there, because you're not doing this for anything. You're not doing this to have this hospital named after you, this university named after you. You're doing this because you want to do good in the planet. So much of philanthropy is not to do good on the planet. It has so many reasons.
They do that for promotional purpose. Oh, that person gave away so much and his name is there, and yada, yada, yada.
Right. And actually, what's interesting, Pavel, is that some of the most very darkest organizations on this planet are actually foundations. They are foundations, then they are charities that, like Red Cross, apparently they, when was it? This was the very recent thing that happened. Some really bad disaster happened. Was it in Australia? Or they had millions, they had like $100 million given to them. And apparently they used like $2 million to help people. And they're like, it's so weird, okay? So many of these things are so corrupted. If you really want to talk about kindness and human kindness, those are the people who give to charity or help people or do things without you ever hearing their name. Anytime you hear somebody's name or hear a foundation or $100 million from this guy, that's not at all for humanitarian reasons.
Have
That's
you heard
not
about
at all for the kindness.
Have you heard about Vipassana by any chance? About Vipassana meditation centers? It's
I've heard of Vipassana. Yes,
Vipassana.
I know Vipassana, what that is. Yes.
There was a guy as Goenka who he created an institution, a kind of a group, a Vipassana idea, and spread that all over the world. So people are creating venues all over the world from charity. But the point I wanted to bring here is, in Poland, I've been on 10 days retreat a couple of years ago, and I heard all those rumors that, oh, we got some founders, guys who, like, some people came and invested a ton of money, but at some point, they didn't want their name to be known. So even people who were managing the place there, I was asking, who are the founders? They don't want to be recognized. And I was like, oh, that's a completely different point of view, because they didn't want their name to be on the venue. They didn't want to be praised for that. And then some rumors told me who was that, and then I reached to the source where there was that interview with a guy who went actually to India and met with that guy, and he just got so much value that he wanted to give back, but nothing else. No more media recognition. He's just doing his own job in his business, because he have huge business and they donated a lot of money, but they didn't want any recognition from that. And that completely shift my thinking about it, because a lot of people are investing, like, even funny thing, go to my park, to public park close to just behind my house, and I noticed that you have even freaking chairs sitting, how it's called in English, the chairs with name of the founder, of the person who donated money.
And then if you listen to my story, then I told you what happens in your body when a cell is rich and says, okay, I have my whatever I need, the rest I give away. It's not like, okay, this is from me, I have to write it down. And no, it's not like that. You just give it away. It's never about my name. It's never about who gave it. And it's, in a reality, the more we have to put our name there, the more we have to get recognition for it, the more something is not really right about us. Because to give, you're not giving, you're not gifting people because you know you want to get something from it. That's not really from a spiritual, from a emotional point of view. That's not really giving. Giving happens when you just kind of like, like you have a glass that it gets overflowed, and then it just keeps pouring out. It's not like, oh, I have to put my name here and then my thing here and then. And when you talk about cancer cells and talk about these corporations and all these things and all the ways these people around them are really emotionally disturbed, then whatever they're doing, this charity ball they gave here so that could get prestige, or so that they get recognition, or so that get the tax breaks. But if you really wanted to have a reality where people were just giving, then there would be no names. Suddenly you would go to food bank and there is like so much food there for everybody and nobody knows where it's coming from, right? It's not some politician goes to food bank and washes dishes for 5 minutes and their picture taken and put everywhere. It's not like that. It's the opposite of that. And so so anytime I hear the word philanthropy, or anytime I hear all these things, it's really hard for me, because I know the basis of none of that is love. The basis of none of that is kindness. It's all has these very dark agendas.
At the same time as well, building a business, you need to build a brand and being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you see that balance in terms of, okay, putting my name out there for people to recognize my name and be willing to invest into my product, and where is actually the edge that, okay, you are going nuts with that and just starting to use people?
Everything, the sweetest spot of everything, Pavel, is authenticity. There is a really amazing movie, one of my favorite movies, I think it's called Collateral, with Tom Cruise.
What's the name?
Collateral, I think. It's
right.
Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx. And I think Tom Cruise is a killer there, right? He's a killer. He goes out there to kill people. Actually, let me give you an example of how crazy this is. You live in UK, right? I heard in UK there's this game show which is absolutely horrible. It's called Golden Balls or something. I don't know, something like that. And in this golden ball thing, people get to play with each other and say that, okay, there's an amount, and in this amount, I don't quite remember how this is, but I'm going to try to remember. It's like this, there is this amount that you can say, I'm gonna split this. Okay, let's say there's $100,000, right? Or $10,000. Two people are sitting next to each other, right? One of them says, I will split this, so both of us would get something. And the other one say, I steal, so I would get everything, right? So the way this game show works is if both people say split, they both get $5,000, right? 10,000, and say, if I say my decision is to split, I get 5,000, you get 5,000. If both of them say split. But if one of them says split and the other says steal, the guy with the steal gets all the money and the guy with the split gets nothing, right? And if both of them say steal, both of them get nothing. So the rules are, if you have two splits, both of them get 50%. If you get one steal, one split, the guy with the split gets, the steal gets everything. If you got two steals, neither of them gets anything. This is the game. And to me, it's a really horrible game. But there's one guy who won this game in a crazy way. The way he won it, he told the other person, you should go split, because if you do steal, I am doing steal, okay? And if you go steal, we both lose everything. But if you do split, but if you steal, we both lose everything. But I'm gonna go steal and you go split, so I get everything and I give you half of it. And the other guy is like, are you crazy? I'm not gonna do that, you know, no way. Because these people get to, the whole game show is about these people having conversation for like an hour to decide what to do. That's the whole game. That's the whole TV program.
So they are trying to persuade each other to what to do.
Yes. Yes. And this went on for an hour, where this guy kept telling this other guy, I am gonna steal the thing. Otherwise we get nothing. You do steal, we lose, both we both lose, but let me get it and I'll give you half of it. And the other guy kept saying, no, I'm not doing it. Are you crazy? I'm not gonna do it. So here's the thing, Pavel. If you watch the recordings of this show, many hundreds of episodes, you see so many people tell other person, I'm gonna split, please go split, I'm gonna split, I'm gonna give it to you, please. And they would cry and they would do this. And the other person would finally say, okay, I'll split. I'll split because you're a good person. And they would split, and this person who's been crying to tell them split, they stole. And so this person who wanted to do well, they got destroyed. So not only they lost, but they lost their, they became the loser, right? That they were duped. You understand that, right? This is this idea of being the one with the bag left, you know, the one who's the bag left, whereas the other one wins. It's a very horrible space, energetic space. So this guy came and turned the game on its head. He said, I am gonna steal. You better split. He didn't hide it behind something. He came out in reality, said, I'm gonna steal. Please split. I'm gonna steal. Please split. And if you don't, we both lose. If you do, I win and I give you half. And it took him an hour. Finally, the other guy accepted it. Finally, the other guy accepted and split. And this guy who said, I'm gonna steal, he actually went split himself.
He split himself.
Yes. Because what he had to fight with, Pavel, for an hour, to fight with the fear of this guy feeling like the loser by going split. That's how our reality is built right now. Our reality is built in a way that for you doing, wanting to do something right, they are gonna make you, Matrix is gonna make you, media is gonna make you feel like a loser. And for somebody who actually to help you, they have to lie to you, or they have to tell you what is really happening for you to accept. The reason I'm saying this to you, Pavel, and if you see the movie Collateral and this example, you talked about corporations. I have no problem with somebody who comes out and says what they're gonna do, tells you the truth, parent, and say, okay, sure, we promote this thing, or we gave money away, or we are foundation, but let's speak the truth. We did this, and the reason for it is really for our own promotion. We are not doing this for you guys and for the African children. We are doing this because we are also benefiting from it. If they do that, I'm completely fine with it.
But if I'm not, I can't recall the exact example, but I heard that people, yes, we are doing that to help you, but as well at the same time we are promoting ourselves. So I noticed that they build much more trust if they are immediately coming up with.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what I'm trying to.
Okay, we are promoting.
If somebody is authentic, if somebody is authentic and says what is really why they are doing something, then I have so much more respect for them. The problem is that you're in a world that everybody's being deceptive. People don't say why they do what they do, and they cover it in some kind of a humanitarian, some kind of a, whatever reason. The problem in this planet, and I've said this before, it's not really the darkness. Everybody has darkness. We all have darkness. We have dark issues. We have dark sides. The problem is fake light. People who make it look like they're saints, make it look like they're Jews, making look like they're peaceful, but that is really not what is going on. That is the biggest problem on this planet.
People trying to hide instead of being authentic and coming out in, okay, that's what I do, but as well that's my intention. Well, I noticed that being selfish itself can get kind of a negative connotation in modern reality, because we think like, oh, selfish is always for us. But as well, if I'm being selfish, I can be more generous and I can help I can help others. But as well, I'm helping others because I want to help myself. So it's a both.
Yes. And when I gave you the example of the body, I said the cells need to feel good about themselves, do good in connection with other cells, and have an impact at the same time, all three things at the same time. It's not that yourself, like you would probably know people that are going out there and helping others or doing something in politics, or they're activists or something like that. But then you go to their own house, somebody lives in their car, but then they're going and giving all their time to food bank or something. That doesn't work. Right? You gotta live yourself in a beautiful way, have good connections, and help the world. The problem on this planet is that there are a lot of people who only think about themselves, and they don't give anything away. And there are a lot of people who only think about others and do nothing for themselves. Which again, all of this goes back to your own inner stuff, right? It's about your inner work, because when you're doing all this stuff for other people, we think it's for other people, but it's really not for other people. It's for our own internal dark shadow stuff that we are not quite aware of. So we do all these other things for other people because we don't really know. We have stopped listening to our own selves.
So let's talk a little bit about that a little bit more in depth, because when it comes to inner self, it can serve you as a GPS, as a sort of a system that can help you to get the right balance, that sweet spot. But
yes,
we are, how to say, people have no clue that they can even listen to themselves. They are so attached to listen to authorities, finding out answers outside medias. Uncle Google is a huge one. I got trapped into that whatever I needed to get the answer from is Google that. But then I found out, I can actually close my eyes and ask the question and just be patient with, and cannot really expect that to happen immediately, but that will come with time and the patience.
Your inner compass that's, as a coach, as a life coach, that's my work. It's like, I don't really want to help anybody. I don't want to tell anybody to do what I want to do always is help them restart, reactivate their inner compass, your inner GPS, right? Because you have access. When you get to a point to understand in your own consciousness that thing. You know, I was talking to my sister the other day, and there was an ad many years ago that said the network is the computer, right? Network is not is the computer. Because imagine 20 years ago when there was no internet, and you would have your little PC sitting there without connecting to internet. It was very limited and very boring. Now you have access to internet. PC, you don't even need a PC, right? That's why we have a cell phone, because we have access to everything, right? Because the network is the computer. So the less you think of yourself as having the solutions, and the more open you become to have the solution come to you from source, from consciousness everywhere, the more answers you have, which is when you completely stop blocking it, right? But this stuff is I might as well be speaking Chinese right now, right? Because what the hell does that mean, right? What do you mean get non-local information from somewhere? That, like, what do you mean? Like, this is my brain,
where they're
and
coming.
you know, where the hell is it coming?
Mhm.
And it's because very few people, unless you've done a ton of inner work, have enough a peace of mind in themselves to be able to have a quiet mind to actually receive stuff, to receive the information. I've talked to you about this. To me, this is like, at any given point, you have like 12 angry men screaming at the top of their head inside our head, right? We have this thing, which is all these men screaming their head off.
12? Why 12?
Could be 12 or 10 or 15 or
Okay.
whatever. I usually
The
use
dialogue.
12.
The dialogue in your head.
Yes. It's not really the dialogue, it's more like scream, because dialogue is much more civil, much more complex. This is
indeed.
more screaming.
So
Because go on.
let me bring an example here. So
Yeah.
When, for example, a person get a panic attack, and all that voices are screaming inside of your head, and you don't know completely what to do, that to the point that you are paralyzed and you're panicking, and you just basically stuck in yourself. And I noticed that I've been working on my attacks recently, and I noticed that, okay, if I'm able to just close my eyes and stop and don't react, I can actually get a lesson from the basically. Maybe I'm afraid of losing money or money situation, or maybe I'm afraid about my relationship or about something that has happened. Okay, let's see what's there hidden behind. And when those voices start calming them, I can listen what they have to say. And once I start to find out, okay,
so the problem is that, Pavel,
for example, and
the problem is that, Pavel, you are at a higher consciousness than many people. Why? Because you have reached a point to be able to witness what is happening inside you as you being something, not as it. There are few people, most people don't have that ability to fracture the consciousness and be able to separate them from that voice that's screaming. They are that voice. And when you are that voice, you have no choice, right? So what happens is that you have reached a point that you can separate yourself and actually listen. People are the speakers of that voice. And not only are they speakers, So then there are other voices that they hear, but they become the dominant voice becomes those people. And guess what? That dominant voice is nothing but a defense mechanism that you created when you were 6 years old. You're dealing with people that most people on this planet are at the level of 3, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old that have never really dealt with any of their issues, and they are going around dealing with things that the way a 6-year-old would do.
Emotional reaction, somebody said something to them, oh, yada yada yada, and there's that shouting voice inside of your head reacting, how they dare, and they hold a grudge for months, sometimes even years towards that person. Instead of stopping for a moment, like, hold on a second, like, what's the point of it? And that situation is already past, so what's the point to spend any second of my time to worry, to be angry at someone? If that's happened, okay, learn something from it, and we can detach from that emotion and get that sense of peace inside.
The problem is that most of the time people are having fights or arguments or disagreement. It's not two people having arguments, is their stuff against the other person's stuff, right? Like, let's say if somebody is a web designer, right? And their client tells this web designer, could you make that background green? The web designer, if he has issues, which most do, it's like, why should I make it background? What's wrong with it? They go immediately defensive. It's like, it's not about you. There's nothing wrong with who you are. But Pavel, people go around all the time taking everything personally, right? They don't listen to you. Like, you know, a man and a woman are having a conversation, and she's like, you know, maybe honey, next time you cook, maybe use less salt. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? You always like, there is never an actual discussion that goes anywhere, because anytime anybody has any feedback which the other person doesn't agree with, they immediately become defensive, then start fighting. So then of course you have these things. This plays out in corporations, this plays out in relationships, this plays out in everything. So you and I are two different people, right? So we can only have, and this is one of the big things in evolutionary relationships and love relationships, because one of the most important things is for us as a couple, man and a woman, to be able to fight, to be able to get to a point of the sweet spot. But if you don't argue, if you don't fight, if you don't speak your truth, how does the other person know? They don't.
And people tend to
they don't
just
know what's going on in your world. You don't know what's going on in your world.
And then those expectations, I do expect something from you, and that I do expect something from you, and that doesn't work out.
But I'm not going to tell you, right? I'm not going to tell you, and then it gets piled up and piled up and piled up, and it goes this high, and then finally she says, maybe those shoes are too gray, and then man will blow up, because there's all this stuff that has been gathered that has not been spoken about, right? So in a healthy relationship, when there are disagreements, when there are issues, you have a fight, you have an argument, you speak about it, because every argument is to actually get you closer.
Let's bring some example. Let's bring some example here. So I will check if I understood that correctly. Because when I started my relationship with my partner, about 2014, I moved to UK, and I was kind of a kiddo, early 20s, and I had argument with my partner for just ridiculous things. And then I've been quiet for about a month too. And then we had another arguments. We were just bringing entire 2 months in order to argue about it. And then we were quiet. So to the point right now where is, okay, I feel like, let me check if I got this right, or what I'm hearing is this and that. So a simple example is that I've been processing my past with my parents as in inner child coaching. So I explained her, look, there's no point to feel a grudge towards my mom, for example. And why you are saying that? Why are you justifying? And okay, I feel like you misunderstood me. Tell me what you heard. Oh, I heard this and that. I heard that you've been just justifying her. No, that's not what I've been saying. Let me try to use different words. So I explained, I've been working with my inner child, healing things, and I get to the past, find out where that came from. And she was like, oh, that completely changed the situation. And we get to the different level suddenly from person who is just trying to filter information that suits them and just use what they hear and try and just, if they don't like it, straight away defend to kind of a way of understanding both sides. Like, I'm talking to you all. Let's use some example. Let's trying to find out if I understood you correctly. That's what you are referring here right now, or
yeah, it's like it's more, becomes more nuanced, right? And it's because what happens is that if I fight with my partner and I'm triggered and it's my stuff against her stuff, I'm not really listening to information that is coming from my partner. All I'm doing is trying to defend myself, right? I'm trying to defend because I'm hurt, I'm wounded, I'm triggered. I'm not really interested in what she has to say. All I'm doing is trying to defend myself because I am going from that wounding and I'm doing whatever I can. But the more I have the ability to contain myself, to soothe myself, to work with myself, the more I can take in the information she's bringing me. And some of it might not be helpful. Some of it might be her own projection, but some of it is helpful. But when I am in a space of complete woundedness, complete lack of resources, in a space of not being able to hear anything she says, then I am getting no information. And this is happening not only in love relationship, this is happening in corporations, this is happening everywhere. Because people, if you have you're a 6-year-old who, who's just trying to make herself important, you're not listening to the information, you're not open to feedback, you're just trying to maintain your little wounded self. And guess what? Most of the bosses, most of the people in these corporations are like that, are extremely wounded humans. That the only way, like if you look at the way these, especially banks and oil companies and stuff work, the way they work is that the person on top, the management, they make everybody's life absolutely miserable. Like they have them work like 12 hours a day. These people are extremely miserable, right? And they have created a situation that 1 or 2 people can go up, right? There's like 20 people here, and they have shown them that 2 of them or 1 of them can go up. So these people are killing themselves, literally. They're working so hard, right? So that 1 of them can go up, that person that goes up, he gets to do that to the other people. Like, this is how these things are created. They're not created to make people feel better. They're not created to make people feel useful. No, they're created that you are being abused to death until you find yourself a way to go up so that you can abuse people. This is how the corporations are, especially like I know this is, I know a guy who worked for Microsoft. He worked for Microsoft on a very high level, like, I don't know, like Microsoft Asia or something, that level, right? And he said every year in Microsoft, there was a meeting, extremely high level meeting, where Microsoft Asia and Microsoft whatever, like Americas and Microsoft, all these people, all these extremely high level management, executives would go and give a sort of a presentation of how their work was that year, right? And they would speak about it for, like, I don't know, 4 hours or something. And they would show everything and they would talk about everything. And by that day, Pavel, they would know in front of everybody if they still had a job or didn't. Of works. Imagine the level of humiliation that you went up there and everybody knows that today you got fired at the highest level. So many of the organizations, so many of the places on this planet, so many relationships are people who are extremely wounded, and all they're doing is trying to make somebody else hurt.
So here you gave an example of very high level. I just wanted to bring one example from slightly lower level that we can meet on a daily basis. Simply, the work I've been around, the full-time work. Recently, there was an interesting meeting with a manager, and manager came and said to us, look, I'm aware that people are laughing at me, people hate me and stuff, but I don't really care about that. And that made me think, like, okay, that's interesting. And then with time, I was having conversation with different type of people, and I noticed how the manager was reacting towards them. There was no response, very harsh treatments, being kicked out, basically out because of nothing. Just one day somebody was at work and another day got a letter and you are out. And that made me think, oh, that person created sort of a defense mechanism, and if is able to, in a position of power, to and spot some sort of resistance from team members, that person was out immediately without any conversation. I was like, oh, so that person had a lot of unresolved issues that prevents her from being the manager, the leader that people expect from her to be. That's sad to observe at some point, because such people are so close-minded, they cannot listen to anybody apart of for example, the person is listening only to the top manager who give complete freedom because respect.
Exactly, and so look, I worked for a company that was so toxic that one time they hired a guy who was the boss of my boss, right? So this guy is my boss of my boss. And he was a really cool guy. He actually liked me a lot and I liked him. He's still my friend.
Nice.
The CEO of the company, Pavel, the CEO of the company would send this guy who wasn't, he was working for him, right? The CEO of the company would send him all these emails of all the other people in the company saying really nasty things to him about him. And the CEO just would send this toxic, dark, disgusting email to him and just say FYI. imagine the level of toxicity in this company. And this is a company that was so toxic and so strange that we had like 2 people in the in the marketing, web marketing department, and then we had a VP of marketing, and then we had a VP of, like we had 2 people, and then we had VP, and then VP of this. But then if you wanted to talk to like somebody, they're like, I'm not going to talk to you. You have to talk to your boss. It was so strange, right? And then at the same time, the CEO did this thing. So what I'm trying to tell you, Pavel, is that so much of the relationships on this planet are not built on honest, authentic feedback because so many people are wounded. So the way it's organized is that, yes, you're treated like crap, but don't worry about it. Work your ass off so you can go up, so you can treat other people like crap. It's that's the only reward. The reward is that, yes, it's abusive, but go up and you can abuse other people.
And interesting to observe is that when you act authentic, it sort of at the beginning feels not all right. It's not normal to act authentic. People were like, "What are you saying?" People are literally getting defensive when you are being authentic because it's such a strange to observe that
phenomenon. Yeah.
phenomenon.
Yeah. Yes, they just have no idea what, like, when you speak your truth, and it's funny because, you know, at the same company, they wanted to fire me, right? I knew it, that they wanted to fire me, and they hired this guy to replace me, and I knew it. They never told me that they were going to fire me, but I knew it. And so I trained my replacement to the best of my abilities. I knew he's going to replace me, but I'm like, they're paying me. This guy needs to know his job. It's okay. So I trained him to the best of my abilities. Then I went to Burning Man. And when I came from Burning Man, they called me in the office telling me that they're going to fire me. And the boss started, the new guy started trying to go doing this whole song and dance thing to me with me. I'm like, no, I know what you're going to do. Let's get this over with. And he was so shocked. He's like, oh, that's very adult of you. Like, he didn't know. He expected to need to, I knew exactly what was happening. I knew all the dynamics. I knew everything. I knew that I'm going to get fired. I knew that this guy's my replacement. I knew that I knew everything. So when he was completely shocked, he had no idea that I was like, no, let's just get this over with. Because it's like, it's when you're speaking your truth, when you're living in a guided way, when you're doing what you need to do, you're like, all these things that, like, Pavel, the thing is that really the truth is out there. Like, you can see it. It's just everywhere. And you can see it and you can follow it.
I can so much relate to that, Hamid, right now. It's basically like literally the manager I'm talking about become my manager about a month ago. I've been working for the company for around 4 years. And the manager became about a month ago manager because of the previous one left. And then once she announced that, I immediately knew that, okay, I'm having problems. I'm not gonna be here in that team any longer. So I had that weird feeling of, okay, time to do something about it. So obviously I get another job right now. I'm in transition. But the funny thing happened is that when I had the first conversation with her, she'd been so happy and so welcoming when she became manager. But then once I provide a notice letter of 3 weeks to her, that person literally started to avoid me, didn't even talk to me, and felt like, oh, you have no power over me right now, so it's literally feels like, oh, she's kind of avoiding me because there's no power that she can, oh, she can fire me over, so I don't have to listen her that anymore.
Yeah.
That's interesting. A power balance here, power shift in that moment.
Yeah, and then it's like I work for this other company, and they started really treating me badly, like extremely badly. I felt that at one point it was like they have me and around the corner and they want to kick me to death, right? I really felt that. So when I felt that, like when I felt things are starting to get bad, I went and interviewed with another company, right? And I interviewed in another company, and I think I landed a job in a couple of days, right? So I think this was like Friday, and Friday I called work and I said, I can't come today. I have, my car is not working. And the guy's like, well, somebody can come give you a ride. We really need you. And I'm like, no, I can't today. I can't. And he kept saying, no, you should, we need you. I'm like, I can't today. And that same Friday, I went to job interview, right? And so on Monday, I started my new job. And it wasn't, in a way, that company wasn't the kind of company that you would give them 2 weeks notice. But I didn't go to work the next day, Monday, and they went to work waiting for me, right? They went like, where's Hamid? And they never showed up, and they were completely just devastated, right? Because they expected, and because they wanted, I was a big part of their plans, and they wanted to turn me, I'm a web designer, graphic designer, this and that. They wanted to turn me into basically a glorified data entry person with Coda, right? And the moment they wanted to do that, the moment I was gone, right? Because I can follow things, I can create solutions for myself, I can create choices for myself. And the problem with a lot of people, Pavel, like, you're doing great right now because you're very smart to move. I was going to say to you, you should not stay in this company. It's your period is over. This woman, when I look at it, this woman is a sign of things changing in this company. And you're doing because she's like, I think they call it bellwether or something. She's a sign that something is changed on a fundamental level. And this happened in the company, several companies that I've been in. And you're doing absolutely right. The problem is most people don't see any of these signs, right? They cling to a job until somebody comes and, hits them with a machete or something. But you're doing this because you're observing, you're paying attention.
And,
right?
and a great example, here. I've been talking with my team member who said, who've been basically waiting for like 3 weeks, being with that manager, and she knew that she wanted to change a team, to move to a different department. So she went to that manager and said, no, you're not good enough to move somewhere else. I'm not gonna give you away. You need to stay here. And I was like, oh,
that's horrible. That's really horrible.
Too late.
Yeah, no, but this is, I mean, that's the thing about reality. It's like at any given point, there is so much information given to us so that we can make a better decision. But when we are completely blind, when we have all these men screaming in our head, when we have all this stuff, this garbage around our head, we are literally not paying attention. Like, there's people don't read. People don't read signs. Like, it says, the door says exit, and somebody says, where can I find the exit? Right? Like, people don't literally have no access to the information given to them in front of them, let alone for you do what you do, which is like, well, it's not even ignoring. Ignore is when I ignore something, I'm actually acting, doing something. This is not about ignoring. This is about
kind of consciously you ignore those things. And here,
It says inability to process information. People are not able to process information. They're just not there. They don't have an agency over their consciousness. So they're like, they have no idea. They're like just there. Like I always give this example of this guy was in an iPhone line for 2 weeks. 2 weeks he was waiting for the next iPhone. He was literally staying in a tent. And they had an interview with him. They said, why are you doing this? Why is this so important to you? His answer was, I don't know. There are so many people that live like that they're like some man is married to a woman for 30 years and they have the most abusive relationship. And you're like, why are you with her? His answer would be, I don't know.
The lady I've been talking recently had a boyfriend, and I was talking to her about her future plans, and she wanted to go to Sweden to university because there's a particular course she would like to study.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, so what's hold you? What stops you from going there? You're young, you have some finances, you could go and apply for some support up there. And she said, no, because my partner doesn't support me. She don't want he won't move. So if I would move there, it means that gonna be over. Oh, okay. So it means that you need to stay. Yeah, so I have no choice. I need to stay, and that's. I didn't go. That was kind of public place. I think we could go deeper and find out to inner child, because there's a lack of something, a need of some support from the other person. But anyway, indeed, here she knows what to do, but on the other side there is that part of her that holds her back.
But it's the sad thing is, Pavel, is that I don't know the dynamics of the relationship of this person. But the sad thing is, if let's say this was an abusive relationship that she had with this person, right? The sad thing is that, Pavel, that people do just end up in abusive relationships. People actively seek abusive relationships. That's the sad part. Because, you've heard of how many women want like bad boys, or they don't want nice guys. Or
I've been in Pua, so I know that. I've been there. Pua, pickup artists.
The reason for that is because they have been abused by their father or by this or by that, and they can only relate to that. Therefore, they seek that out. As a life coach, I deal with people like that, right? I deal with people who constantly have abusive relationships, and they think they are trying to avoid it while they are actively seeking it. And I knew a man who had this abusive relationship with this woman, and all the relationships he had were abusive. He had a girlfriend, he thought she was his girlfriend, that he spent enough money on her to put her through college, right? She used him while she had other men who were absolutely abusive to her. And while she was using him, and after she dropped him, he was not allowed to go to her mother's funeral.
Who didn't allow him?
That woman.
A woman.
That woman, he put her through college, would not allow him to go to her mother's funeral. But this guy was, he was a good-looking guy, he was a rich guy, he was a kind guy. Every relationship he sought was with women who would abuse him. And there were cases when there were beautiful, sexy, interesting, kind women wanted to be in relationship with him, and he would find a way to not be with them. he would say, I don't know, the way she breathes reminds me of a rabbit or something. It's so weird. Like when you see people who seek a certain type of relationship, not wanting to go to relationship with somebody else, and when you ask them, they give you the weirdest excuses. Like it makes no sense. It does not. Like, didn't your current boyfriend just punch you in the nose? Well, yeah, but he was having a bad day and his mom just died and his aunt is having a heart attack. But didn't this guy just give you a bouquet of flowers, and then he wrote you this poem, and all he wanted you to, yeah, but I don't know, the way he speaks reminds me of it's so strange, right? And I see this kind of thing everywhere.
Comes from the past. I mean,
yeah.
One thing I would need to wrap up at this point here, because
Sure.
in 10 minutes I have
Sure.
another meeting, but I would
Sure.
love to continue, at least have another conversation, keep doing
brother.
Keep doing that, keep having another conversation,
Sure.
continue. All right, so
yeah.
we'll find out sometime, most likely in the next week.
Yeah,
or something.
let me know. Yeah, sure.
All right,
Sounds good. Have a good day, Cal. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
brother.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Sure.